Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video on Marvel Strike Force. I hope that you all had a great weekend and are having a great week. Today, we're going to be doing something I don't normally touch on this game mode, but we're going to be talking about Cosmic Crucible. And I've actually been a little bit more serious lately with my Crucible. I am finally in the Diamond League. How long I stay there, I don't know. But I want to touch on Xtreme X-Men. I've been seeing this quite frequently now, over the last 2 weeks at least, on Crucible Defense. I want to share with you my experiences with them, some of the things that I've seen, some of the things that I'm doing, and also some that was kind of some gameplay that was kind of shared with me as well that I want to share with you guys as well in terms of different variants and kind of how it's working out. So if you're ready to go, everybody, let's boil this down. Now, first off, I want to share with you guys what's going on with my Cosmic Crucible this week. Ignore this. Yeah, I screwed up. I effed up on my Trial 2. I did win Trial 1, but I effed up on Trial 2. I did something stupid, and I don't want to share that in this video. But we're here to talk about Extreme X-Men. For me, what I've been doing is, surprisingly, I have not been using Super Scroll. We're just going to rip the Band-Aid off, because it's both about Extreme X-Men and some variants as well. And so what I'm doing right now, I don't know if this is mean or not, but I think he rage quit. This happened on my Trial 1, and I had Extreme X-Men with Super Scroll. And I realized that it's not two villains as well, it's just the two heroes. But the two heroes gives the ability block on the special, which I thought gave a lot more value. I think that having the two heroes rather than the two villains is more important than having, specifically having the mixture, if you can't do it. But anyways, they went in with Superior 6 and also with a mixture of Tangled Web and Masters of Evil and Combat Cancelled. And unfortunately, never did a third attack, because I just wanted to know what they would do. And the other sad thing is that when you do a Combat Cancel, you also can't really see, you can't replay it, right? And so I kind of wish that I could see it, because obviously he played it, and then at some point he knew he was going to lose, and he backed out. And so I wish I could see that moment that he decided to back out. I think that that's really important in terms of knowing, how the team plays out. But I guess, in the back end of Marvel Strike Force, that they just kind of ripped it out, and they don't count it as such that you can view it. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but this is the team that I use up here. So Nightcrawler, Gambit, Forge, Rogue, and Super Skrull. Now, one question that I've had, just more broadly is there a world where we don't use Rogue on this team defensively? I'm not sure, because I have a really built up Cyclops. Actually, in fact, my whole team is G18. I've experimented with this, by switching in different characters and different. I think last week I tried using Cyclops and Sunspot, the entire 5 team without Super Skrull or Rogue. Had some mixed results. Unfortunately, I don't have that anymore. And it did actually pretty well on the efficiency points. They did one shot it with Superior 6, I believe, but the efficiency points were still pretty low. I just wonder, which variation is better. I'd love to know from your experiences as well. If you've tried any of this, what have you noticed as far as points go? As far as the efficiency points go, the end total, what kind of scores have you seen? That would be more interesting to know, because, we know that in the top end of Crucible, even 5 or 10 points difference can make a huge, even just 2, right, can sometimes win you a match. So I'd be very curious, some of the experiences that you guys have had. In my second one, I did put the same team up on defense, and I want to play this one for you. So this one was a Superior 6 as well, going into a Skrull, and I want to replay that. They did end up beating me on the second attack with Apocalypse. They had a Skrull on defense, so they did not have one to use on offense. So 2 taps are pretty common, I think. With Skrull, some people are able to one-shot depending on the room. I came up against Super Skrull in room 1, so I did the 2-tap just because I didn't want to mess around. I just wanted to make sure I got killed, so I did the 2-tap, which is really common with Minerva and Phoenix. And so that's what I did. But I want to play this replay for you guys. Can I? Oh, I can, actually. I want to put it on 2x just so that you can kind of see how things go out. And so we have Super Skrull going in with the special there. Of course, you can't ability block them. It's the full Superior 6 team as well. And actually, I don't think I've seen... I don't think I actually played this before, so I'm not sure how exactly it plays out. But you can kind of see it here. I haven't watched this one yet. This is the first time we're watching it all together. So we get the stun on Spider Slayer there with Nightcrawler. So he goes kind of second after Skrull and Nobody else has really taken their turn yet. Rogue gets a trauma and an ability block on Green Goblin. So that's pretty unfortunate. They've taken a lot of damage already. Lizard's taking his turn with the ultimate. He's going around clearing some buffs, at least the people who don't have Safeguard, which is these three. And then Forge is probably about to go soon, maybe. Oh no, Scroll went again because they have so many buffs. And that's kind of why you don't want to use Lizard going up against Superior. Well, against Scroll, probably that was a bad idea. So that kind of sealed the deal, I think, that they didn't really get a lot of progress in there. Too many buffs that Lizard ended up sharing with the entire team. I think that was the big problem there. In fact, that's his second special. Wow. And then Forge gets the ultimate, and it's like downhill from here. We can probably 3 times it at this point. So one tip, do not, if Scroll is in there, do not use Lizard. I think that's going to be a big problem. I would have probably just gone in with the traditional 2-tap maybe. I think that some other thing that you can do is using Apocalypse against, I don't want to say Extreme X-Men, but Unlimited X-Men, because it does stop the spawn safeguards that you would get from Rogue and Gambit, because they would get that on spawn due to Rogue's passive. And that's what you're going to see on the follow-up attack here as well on the second, because there is Apocalypse there. So I do want to share that part with you before we get to some of the other clips that was shared with me from some viewers. And I hate that I have to go all the way back in. Results, defense, 5, replay. So they did end up beating this. And I think Apocalypse, they were also weakened, of course, because that's what happens when you actually lose a real battle. Hence the 2-tap in room 1, which is really common right now. And of course, Apocalypse is going to block any safeguard that they would have got on spawn. So I'm just going to do this right away on the 2x, just so you can see how it plays out a little bit here on the speed. So it's, we have Titania going in with the ability block on Super Skrull. So she's still going pretty quickly before the other characters. Kang's also going to go before the others, and everyone's just piling into Super Skrull. Though they did lose Absorbing Man. Absorbing Man seemed pretty useless, actually, there. So he's going to lose some efficiency points, obviously, for that one, for dying. Even with the weakened, still does a decent amount of damage. There. Okay, let's speed this up a little bit, actually. And we get the Gambit ult. I'm actually surprised, basically how well they're still hanging in there, despite being weakened. Decided to go in with the Apocalypse special rather than the alt, which I found a bit peculiar, because I feel like the alt, you would have just been able to kill, unless he's not a big Apocalypse. I don't know why you would have done the special first, but there you go. Like, it's still, I can see a world where this is still really challenging, even for a follow-up attack. And I have a strong suspicion that they're gonna buff Extreme X-Men somehow in the next season of Cosmic Crucible. They're either gonna have a room that's again dedicated to mutants, or there's gonna be a season buff that's gonna somehow draw in Extreme X-Men or Hive Mind, I guess, as well, because those are the 2 major teams that recently came out. And I think that's what we're gonna see for this next season, which starts in 3 weeks. So this is one of the more nastier teams I think that people are starting to see on Crucible defense. But let me know, and like, what's your experiences with it? We're gonna kind of pivot to some other footage that we have, though. That's just mine. Okay, so this one's coming from YouTube. This one is actually Gangster KT's. I don't know if he wants me telling him, because he did lose. But he said that I could use this footage. So we're using, this is Gangster KT's Superior 6 matchup against regular Extreme X-Men. I think it's the full team here. So we're gonna play this one. I did watch this one time, a portion of this. So basically, you got the full team. Actually, you don't have Lizard in there, so there's no Lizard this time. But as far as the defense goes, this is, I believe it's room 5, and you have the full team. It's actually the full team without Rogue. And so I think what's really, you don't have to, but I think having Vulture in there is nice to have, because he's going to basically cause some issues when it comes to the spawn speed up, if you know Vulture's passive. So he goes in first, gets some offense down to a Gambit, which I think is going to be very helpful. And then we get the Green Goblin Classic go in, reduce a lot of turn bar. Everyone's got trauma at this point, which is kind of funny. And then we have the Craven special. Now, I want you to watch this kind of closely, because we started talking about the results of this, and you can see there that basically Craven went into ability block Forge. And that's normally something that I would do as well. And this is something that I have done offensively going up against this team. Actually, I might have my own offensive footage from this week. I'm not sure. I have to go back and check that as well when I used my version, but I didn't use Spider Slayer. I think I used Mysterio, but I forgot. And so then we get the Spider Slayer alt. And I do want to let people know here that for those of you who aren't familiar, because, essays, the kits are essays these days. But basically, whenever anyone goes under 50% HP, Forge gets 15% turn bar. And this can stack, like they can go above and below and things like that, and they can trigger it multiple times. So in case you're wondering how he gets turn bar, things like that, that's what happens. Also, if somebody dies and Cyclops is on the field, Cyclops gives Forge 100% turn bar, which is pretty interesting. And you're going to see that pretty soon here, because I was wondering, and I honestly didn't know. So you can see right there that Nightcrawler dies, right? And then if you like watch really quickly, you can see here, Forge gets 100% turn bar. And I honestly didn't know that about Cyclops' passive, because I was wondering where that came from. And I didn't think to look at Cyclops. I honestly didn't know that part of his kit, because, some of these characters just have really long kits. And so what's interesting is, despite him being ability blocked, he was able to take his turn, his first turn. Okay, he does a basic, right? And then he goes in straight to the alt and brings back Nightcrawler. And that's really interesting, because now, they all got positive effects, and Nightcrawler's back, and they had some evades. They dodged that Vulture alt. And, things start to take a little bit now the X-Men are kind of like coming back a little bit from this. Then you can see that Nightcrawler takes his turn, does a stun on Shocker, but it puts a lot of defensive buffs up on the rest of the team. And despite all of this, they're starting to get a second wind here. And that's the interesting part. And you saw here that, well, because of the Forge alt, Cyclops also got an extra energy, which allowed him to do his ultimate. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, they're taking some damage here. They're taking some heat. Vulture died over there. We get an ability block on Shocker. Not a big deal. But it does put a slow on the rest of the team there with the special, with the sort of the residual damage on the side. Craven did the alt, but they had immunity, so it didn't really make much of a difference there. We did flip some buffs with Doc Ock, but again, they're still pretty healthy. And then, of course, now we have offense up on Gambit, so they're taking a lot of damage. At this point, Green Goblin's already done his ult, so he doesn't really have a lot of AoE. Sunspot's dead, but Gambit's just doing a crap ton of damage on his passive. And so, you're going to see... Sadly, Gambit's kind of carrying the team there at the very end, and so Green Goblin just can't solo 4 people, unfortunately. So the one thing that I would say about this one is watch out with Forge. Make sure you take him out, or do your best to do that before taking out somebody else, which means that he is really the number one priority. A lot of people are kind of prioritizing Nightcrawler kills, but you really need to watch out for Forge. And I'm really scared about what might happen when the team is farmable, when we have like a 7-star Nightcrawler, 7-star Forge, and so on. Like, this could be a really and for a raid team, that's what I think is the most impressive, is that it's actually doing pretty well as far as like usability in other game modes. It's quite impressive in my opinion. And so I did want to show you one of my attacks that I did. Now, I would call this Sinister 6. It's not Superior 6. I didn't use Lizard, but I did use Mysterio and Vulture. And this is a small variation of, I think, Gangster KT's version, but how it can play out a little bit differently, and how it honestly does matter kind of who you target first. It's not like an insta-win necessarily using Sinister 6 or Superior 6 against them. It depends on who you're focusing first. And of course, their lineup, I suppose, their version of X-Men. So I made sure to kind of focus in on Forge, right? Like, because that's what I learned is that he needs to go, even before Nightcrawler. It's just way more important, because if you let him start stacking up his abilities and giving up this positive stats effects, it just gets really bad. And so lucky for me, my Craven just had a really good hit there and like killed Sunspot. However, you could see that the same thing still happened, was that he got the 100% turn bar, but we were able to kill Forge before he got out of hand, which is because the other characters did not start losing their hit points. Like I said, when other characters go under 50%, Forge gains 15% speed bar. So that was the main difference, is that the rest of them were still fairly healthy before the other characters started. Sunspot did trigger an extra turn on Forge, but wasn't enough because I didn't like AoE them all down under 15%, which would have triggered a lot more turn bar onto Forge. So I just made sure to get him dead. After that, I just started working on some of the other characters. Not a big deal. Just wanted to share that and how it's super important that you make sure to focus Forge down. Now, finally, I want to share with you this version of Unlimited X-Men, or not, Extreme X-Men, sorry, with Super Scroll on defense. And this was sent to me by Captain King. Some of you might remember the infographic guy, or the one who used to help me with my infographics as well, for the Scourge events. And so he shared this with me. And I want to share this with you guys. There's two versions. One's the first attack and one's the second attack. So the first one was Tangled Web with Undying going up against them. Now, you would think that would have been pretty bad. I've heard of, Undying being used actually against Unlimited, or not Unlimited, Extreme X-Men, like without Super Scroll. So maybe that's why they decided to do that one. This one, on the other hand, you can kind of play this. Oh, right, I forgot. This is not in game, so I can't change the X2s and stuff like that. I don't know why. I just tried to click on that. But we got a stun on Nightcrawler, and I guess he's basically trying to target Nightcrawler like first. And again, I'm not sure if that's the play. I think really the play. I mean, obviously, Super Skrull is gonna be a big problem in general, but I think that you really want the play to be going in on Forge, if you can. Of course, that's probably going to be the biggest difference in my opinion. You probably should have gone with the ability block on Forge. I think because then he wasn't going to do a turn one alt. And then, as you can see, though, things kind of like didn't go super hot. And the worst part is actually when we get towards the end, because Super Skrull gets to a certain point where he's kind of loaded at the wrong time for going into battle 2. And that's probably a mistake. If you are running into this, I'm not sure how many people are using Super Skrull with Extreme X-Men. I am. He is. And like, I don't know how many other people are, but I've had some pretty good results actually on the defense. It's actually done pretty well for me. I think Room 1 Skrull is just overplayed at this point, and people know how to deal with it. They'll two-shot it or whatever. They'll do that. And I think that some people will try to go into one-shot this version and not do super well, as you guys found out. Now, I do want to show you the second attack for this one here. This was the follow-up to that. And he did use Apocalypse. And like I said, Apocalypse does prevent the on-spawn safeguard from Rogue, Gambit, and things like that. So that makes a pretty big difference, actually, for when Apocalypse gets to his ultimate. But they ended the last match with Super Skrull loaded with the ultimate. So he did have offense down, as you can see, but still, probably not the best thing to be, loading with all of those traumas up on everyone. Though you could see that the Apocalypse ult made a pretty big difference there, kind of got out Rogue, because they didn't have safeguard, so that made a pretty big difference on those characters anyways. But, having Super Skrull on there, it still wasn't enough. I'm going to fast forward a little bit because we're getting, this video is getting a little bit long. But, we're just going to jump ahead a little bit. And you can kind of see how, despite the weakness, Super Skrull was still basically able to, carry this team. And so the fact that it was kind of two-shot, even with a lot of people do use Apocalypse as their follow-up attack if you are going to two-shot a Skrull team, I think it was pretty interesting, the fact that, well, it didn't work out. Now, I guess what you could have done is probably done some better version maybe of Superior 6 on the first attack. I don't know. I don't have as much experience. Like I said, I've only been trialing this for about a week or two with different variations of Extreme X-Men. But I have to say that Extreme X-Men on the defense is really impressive. I think it's really impressive because they're a raid team. Yeah, okay, Super Skrull was in there for a couple of times. But even just the Extreme X-Men version, or the Extreme X-Men plus Rogue, whatever you want to call it, I think has really impressed me a lot as far as, what the team can do. Because for a raid team being usable, in other game modes, that's great. And we're seeing that a little bit with Pegasus as well, Pegasus versus Death Seed and other things like that. So there's this trend that the raid teams are actually worth gearing more than they were before, because we're seeing more viability of them overall in the game. And I like that. So let me know in the comments down below what you think. What's your experiences with Extreme X-Men? And I just wanted to share some of this with you that I've kind of seen over the last week or two. That's the end of this video, everyone. And until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon, signing out.